Hey everyone, welcome to GTM Field Notes, a series where we talk to founders and GTM leaders in B2B building the next generation of revenue technology. We focus less on the AI hype and more on what's actually changing inside modern go-to-market organizations. I'm Imran Patel, founder and CEO of Syft. At Syft, we spend a lot of time thinking about buyer signals, automation, and how AI can help revenue teams execute with more precision. Joining me today is my host, Greg Kennedy, founder of 5-Year SaaS and a fractional CMO and a supreme meme maker. Today, we are joined by Patrick Thompson, who's the co-founder and CEO of Clarify. Patrick previously co-founded Iteratively, which was acquired by Amplitude and is now building an AI-native CRM, Clarify, designed around autonomous agents instead of manual data entry. Patrick, thanks for joining us today.
Excited to be here.
All right. So, Patrick, this is not your first time on the rodeo. So, you already built and sold one company. You worked inside Atlassian, right? Before then.
Yep.
Now you're back building Clarify. What made this problem big enough for you to start over? Why go through the pain again?
I mean, I remember we were talking and joking about being a W-2 employee, right? Post-exit was not always the easiest thing working inside of this was an 800-person company at the time. Getting the moving the ship was very, very difficult sometimes. So yeah, I mean, there's nothing else I want to be doing but working and starting companies. So, for me, it's it's a joy to be back into the startup arena. In the context of what to go solve, with our last company, we were working on what I would consider like a point solution. It was a CDP in this kind of broader go-to-market landscape. And, we built something and sold it in 2 years. So it was a fairly quick journey. And so this time around, what we were really looking for is how do we go solve a big problem for a lot of people in a big established category, in the context of also kind of AI just coming to the forefront back in the beginning of 24. So that was definitely something that we spent a lot of time thinking about. And based off our journey at Iteratively, we were solving kind of the symptom. We weren't solving the root cause. So this time around, we wanted to go and solve the root cause, which was kind of this fragmentation, no single consistent data layer within teams and organizations. And so for us, that looked and felt a lot like a CRM. But I would say we're not really building a CRM. We call ourselves a CRM. But yeah, the vision is much, much broader than that.
Yeah. So So a follow-up on that, so is Clarify trying to build a better CRM, or is it trying to replace the way the CRM software works today? Is it a CDP? Is it a data warehouse? It's because you said single source of truth, and I had this meme a long time ago where if you ask 4 people in an organization, they have 4 different answers to what the source of truth is. And so tell us a little bit about where are you positioning yourself as a CRM, or are you trying to mix categories?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because category creation is so hard as an early stage startup, and it's a lot easier to attach yourself sometimes to an existing category. And so we've done that in the context we call ourselves a CRM, where I think we're the first AI CRM, truly AI CRM in market that people can sign up for. And we launched basically in 24. So, we've been in market for some time now. And so, we're seen as a CRM market, but I think the vision and what we're building is much more broader than that. To your point, right? There is no system of record within organizations. The bigger the organization, the more that tends to lean towards the data warehouse, right?
Yeah.
The smaller the organization, that tends to lean towards your CRM. So we call ourselves a CRM primarily because we work with a lot of early stage startups today. But long term, we view ourselves as kind of this AI native, warehouse native version of effectively kind of your go-to-market platform. So we consider ourselves like the operating system for your go-to-market team. We try to consolidate all of that data, make it easily usable across multiple different personas, including sales, marketing, support, success long term. But today, I'd say given where we are in market, we kind of walk like a duck, quack like a duck. We look like a CRM, but that's not exactly all of what we're building.
So is the vision to then that your early stage customers, they will grow with you and Clarify becomes like sort of a data warehouse for them going
Yeah,
forward?
long term, our plan is to integrate, and we have the full capabilities of being able to integrate with tools like Snowflake and Databricks today. Just most of our ICP customers are earlier stage companies that don't have a warehouse, so we effectively are that warehouse for them. So yeah, we have people telling data in and out of our systems, right? Like effectively, we built it in a way where it is effectively a warehouse underneath the hood for both relational data, unstructured data, time series data as well.
I see.
I got a quick question. So like you said, you were like, maybe you said, I interpret it as AI first in terms of CRM. I'm curious, like what do you think that means, particularly in the context of like the established players like HubSpot and Salesforce?
Yeah, I think a lot of the pain points that customers have related to CRM or go-to-market tools in general is just the amount of manual work required to do it. So when we started working on AI at Clarify, so once we built this like consolidated data layer, a lot of what we're trying to do is automate the work that teams are doing, right? And so when it comes to automation, a lot of that's things like manual data entry, like how do you automatically update fields? How do you automatically create records? How do you keep everybody in sync? So we were building what we call ambient AI at the time. That's kind of just gotten superseded by kind of this agents framework that we launched earlier this year. But effectively, a lot of what we talk about when it comes to AI native is the automation that we leverage, large language models to do when it comes to data entry, as well as in things like proactive insights on like how things are going.
Yeah, I got to follow up. I want to take it a little bit of a different direction. So there's been a lot of, let's say, social media posts and proclamations about vibe coding, the ability to create anything. And so one of the things that everyone always suggests is like, oh, I'm just gonna vibe code my own CRM, and which I personally think is a little bit silly. But I did see a news article go viral maybe this week.
Yeah, it was earlier this week. That was with somebody built like something for, is that the one that somebody built with like Replit, like and saved like, I don't know, $100,000 or something?
Yeah.
Is
yeah. So it's like, yeah, exactly. So the idea is still out there. So I just am curious, like what do you think about that?
No, it's funny. I mean, like, there's always been a build versus buy argument for software, right? Yeah. And like, Imran, you worked on internal tooling, right? Previously at Snap, right?
Yes,
like,
I did, yes.
So like you had an option even in the context of, 7-8 years ago when you were at Snap to, hey, do we build this or do we buy it? Is that argument has never changed. Now the question is like, what is the cost of building software now? And the cost of building software is going down, right? Like that's 100% for sure. To be clear, building great software is still hard. Right, it's easy to go build a POC, right? And we've had tools like Retool and you name it that made it really easy to build internal applications for a decade, right? So it's like now it's a question of like now I think everybody thinks that they have this superpower. Right? You weren't a product builder, you couldn't build software. Now you can. Now I think it's also this question of like I think vibe coded software works great when you're just one person who's using it. Right, but if you want to manage software and collaboration and the infrastructure behind it and the uptime and the reliability and the maintenance, that's what we've been doing for decades in the software industry. Right now, I don't think that cost has gone to zero. Right, writing code is definitely diminished, but the cost of maintaining code is still just as high, if not honestly harder now than it was before. And so until that gets addressed, I'm not worried. Right, when somebody said, "Hey, I'm going to vibe code something," I'm like, "Great, I'll talk to you in 6 months." And it's not as big of a threat, I'd say. Now, there are, what I do like about this is that people can integrate Clarify into other tools that they're working with, right? So we have an open API, we have things like MCP. So it's a lot easier for people to build and extend software than it ever has been before. So if there's something that we're missing, as an example, somebody can easily go extend Clarify for that. If somebody wants to go do something in another agent harness, they can go do that. So I think that is great. Honestly, I think that is super empowering for a lot of people. But to like, hey, I'm going to vibe code the infrastructure that's managing my entire go-to-market, I'm like, I don't know about that. Like that would be a bit of a like, hey, I'm, it's the same equivalent of like, hey, I'm migrating off of AWS or GCP, right? Like I view us as an infrastructure company, and that's what people are buying is the uptime, right? At the end of the day, and like the reliability and maintainability of not having to worry about those things.
Yeah, I think people definitely underestimate the maintenance part of software. And I think people who have worked on software for long enough, like understand that aspect very well. Right. And
incidences are funny, right? Because like most people who are vibe coding things, they never had to do any incident response. They never had to get paged at 2 a.m. at night. And
they haven't been on like 16-hour, calls where like if something goes down and you're trying to fix it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's one part, and definitely like to your point about. So we had like at Snap, like one of the pieces of infrastructure I was responsible for is our own internal, in a way, amplitude as well as our A/B testing framework. And I think a lot of large scale companies build software internally because for their scale, a lot of off the shelf doesn't work at all. But I think there's a second reason as well, which is internal tooling is also, it encodes how your company works.
Yeah.
And for a lot of companies, internal tooling is a differentiation in a way, right? Like Facebook moves fast, Snap moves fast because they can release like 2 app releases, like every 3 days or whatever. Like every 3 days they can have an app release, and not many companies can do that in the world. And what allows them to do that is they have all this tooling around measurement and deployment and so on. So that's another reason why big companies do. Now, whether like
I think it makes sense for big companies. Honestly, I think it makes sense for like, so at Atlassian, when I was at Atlassian, a lot of honestly most code written, most software written is internal code. Right, like if you look at like the lines of code written across our entire industry, most of it is internal code. It is not an external code for consumers, for consumption by other people. So like the vast majority of code written is internal software. So let's assume that at Atlassian, when I was at Atlassian, same thing. We built our own internal CDP, analytics framework, experimentation framework, feature flagging software, right? And then people that built the feature flagging software left and launched Darkly. It was like, and then iteratively, like we built our own schema registry. We left and built iteratively. And so like, this happens. You end up seeing people who have to solve complex problems at big companies end up going and spinning those things out because there was a need, right? And other people had the same exact problems that required us to go build it, and the solution wasn't in market, or the solution in market wasn't good enough. And I think this is great when you're at a big company, but if you're a small startup, right, your entire value prop that you have is speed and velocity. So you building internal software that doesn't make your beer taste better is not something I would highly recommend, because you're going to spend all your time working on effectively the factory or the infrastructure, less time working on the thing that actually provides you differentiated value and that customers love. Now, to be clear, there are things that go into software delivery that, like, if your software is not up, if it's not working well, if it's buggy, like that's not going to cause customers to be happy. But like, as an example, we aren't using our own feature flagging service. We're not using our own analytics service today. We're not building these things at Clarify because we'd rather go buy off-the-shelf software and build a better CRM for our customers than have to focus on like analytics reporting infrastructure.
Yeah, makes sense. I'm actually I have a follow-up on this, somewhat related to build versus buy, but more like, how you position yourself. So you are like a system of record, right? Like you are you're a sort of a database of sorts. Agents work against it, and then you also have like this agentic layer. And one of the things that I, as a founder myself in this space, I have come around to is that I feel that orchestration or agents are an area where pretty much everyone wants to build an orchestration layer.
Yeah.
And like, and I feel the value is more in like giving the primitives to the agents, like so that they can kind of use your system. Like, they can use Clarify as a database of sorts. For example, here's something that will make it a bit more concrete. We use HubSpot as a CRM.
Yeah.
Because a lot of our customers use HubSpot, so we kind of dogfood it in that way. And we don't do manual data entry into HubSpot, right? Like, so a lot of our source of truth is in our database, is in our Stripe, and so on. And then we kind of just synchronize. We use like Claude to keep our CRM up to date with like all the states and so on. So that's an agent that kind of keeps the CRM up to date. So for me, it's like, why go build an agentic layer? If you are a when customers, and this is not just us, we see it in our customers as well. Our MCP is actually very popular now.
Yeah.
People use us from Claude and other places. So they can build their own agents. So I call it the sort of bring your own agent philosophy in a way.
Yeah.
So why give yet another agent framework to folks?
Yeah, it's a great question. And honestly, I think a lot of companies are going to be building agents into their product because they think of it as like whoever owns the orchestration and the workflow is going to win. Now it's the question of, do you regulate most SaaS to just a database? And there's not long-term, I don't think there's a lot of long-term differentiated value in just being a database, right? So it's a question of like, hey, do you own a persona? Do you own a workflow? Or are you a system record? And like, ideally you're doing all three.
Okay.
Now, if you're not doing one of those, there's no business, right? So the workflow, the orchestration is like, what job are you orchestrating? Like, what are the things that you're orchestrating? And so for us, like, we want to own the go-to-market agents that teams are running, right? And so we think we're better equipped at doing that than running an agent on top of Claude yourself, right? Or doing like a managed package in another type of solution. So the reason why is because we have the context, right? Again, now this is also like an overly used term right now, is everyone wants to own the context layer organizationally, right? And like you see a bunch of people trying to fight for that context layer across the organization. Well, your CRM has more go-to-market context than I think any other system that exists out there. And so like for us, like we have the data, we have this whole notion of context. And so when we're running agents, like the thing that we're proving out is like, are our agents better at doing the job than if you're running it in some other third-party tool that's removed from the data and removed from that context layer. Now, that being said, like MCP tool calls are relatively expensive, right? And brittle, I'd say. Now they're not written with the same type of contract that you would build an API integration. They change, there's breaking changes, like agents tend to break all the time. And so like for us, right, like Clarify, our agent framework works over MCP as a protocol. So you can build an agent that connects into Stripe, into Amplitude, Postlog, you name it, right? And it can orchestrate a bunch of complex work. That being said, we also have a bunch of integrations that we're building that are API, right? We're ETLing the data into Clarify. We're storing that data directly on inside of the warehouse for that customer. And so like when our agents run, it's querying data that's real time directly where it lives versus having to go call a third-party system to retrieve the data. And so we think that there's like long-term better advantages there. Honestly, much cheaper to run and orchestrate, much more token efficient to do that as well. So that's how we've architected our system to work. Yes, we can make third-party calls over MCP. Yes, we can make third-party calls over API, but you can also ETL the data from Stripe into Clarify as well as other types of sources.
I see.
What is
so
your,
I
was going to say something. I was just curious, you mentioned about costs, like, and that's a hot subject as well. So I was curious what your perspective is on AI tokens, cost.
we're in 2015 Uber. Like if people realize that we're in 2015 Uber, I think and we're going to be in 2026 Uber eventually. Now it's a question: yes. Is that going to take 10 years to happen, or is that going to take 2 years to happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely are you saying that tokens are subsidized? It's
100%.
Yeah, they are, but then there is also this. I mean, the people on the other side of the argument, they're like, okay, well, they are subsidized, but the demand is insatiable, right? Like, the demand is not capped in the same way that transportation demand is capped, right?
I mean, there are definitely hard caps on GPUs at the moment, though, right? Like,
right.
You look at like Google's earnings calls and everything else, like the amount of like even for a company like Google, it was like one of the top three. Literally the top three hyperscaler, right? Like they have more demand than they have capacity to fill. So like there is like hard caps on these things, right? And like cost is subsidized. And if the actual demand price point was being sold out really like, if you think about like just an open market, like it would be much higher than it is today, right? So like I think generally whenever you're in an investor kind of favorable market like this, like we're subsidizing the cost through venture capital on this. And like so I think long term, I think what we're seeing right now is like if I was to equate this to drug dealing, we're building a habit, right? That habit is being subsidized, so the cost of that habit is relatively low at the moment, and over time those are going to get much more expensive. And the question is like, is there an addiction to market? And yes, 100% there's an addiction to market. This is, if you asked me today if I had to go do the work I was doing 5 years ago pre-AI, I'd say no, I'm retiring. Like there's no way I'm not gonna pay for what is being delivered. Now there's I'm honestly like exploring running like local models and open router and a bunch of other things to see like how we long-term maintain cost advantage in this market, because for me, like I don't want to have to spend $2 to make $1, and I think a lot of companies are doing that right now. but yeah, I think we're, if we were charging what it took in market for these things to run as scalable businesses, I think we'd all be at a very big disadvantage right now.
So to your earlier point, you mentioned that your agents, compared to let's say if I bring my own agent or build my own agent on Clarify data versus Clarify's own agent, the differentiator for you is that your agents have better context and also that they are more efficient in terms of token usage. Is that
100%, yeah, because if you think about an agent that has to enumerate through a bunch of different MCP calls, right, and figure out what MCP tools to call, get a response, get an error, have to figure out how to resolve that error, right? What we're doing, especially if you think about any agent framework built on top of a data layer is going to just operate much, much better, right? Making a SQL call or again, we're operating, everything, it's a warehouse, so it's everything SQL for us, right? Running SQL is much, much cheaper on when we have the data than having to stitch together multiple different MCP tool calls over the wire, and much more honestly, it's just more reliable too, because if we get let's assume Stripe, or let's assume that a company that doesn't have 9/9 Stripe, great uptime. Anthropic right now, not great uptime.
All right.
So it's when we have the data and our system is more reliable, and it's just enumerating over the context of API or SQL calls, it's just cleaner.
Yeah, cool. I think another thing that I want to touch on, it's not in one of the topics that we want to discuss, but it's too interesting. What's your monetization, philosophy with AI native, right? And again, if you look at HubSpot,
yeah,
they charge you on seats, and they charge
you on everything.
Yeah, they charge you on context. And then there was an interview with their CEO, and I read someplace where right now they will start charging you for MCP calls, because I think Salesforce and all these folks are oh, you can't build on our stuff for free. We are going to charge you for API access or for MCP and so on. They're companies that build on those platforms
for access, right? This is the thing, right? Most companies have both deployed. Most companies have both Salesforce and HubSpot for marketing, Salesforce for sales, and Salesforce charges HubSpot to get access to the data. And this is the case and charges every company, right? So when you charge for data ingress and egress, I think there's a business there. It's just not. It's a question of what value are you generating? You're basically just a tool bridge at that point, right? I don't think that, for me, that doesn't really feel fair. So we give away the CRM for free. So the logical conclusion with AI, right? If software is free and the cost of software goes to zero, then we shouldn't be charging for the software. We should be charging for the work, aka the labor, the value that we're generating. So if you go from a traditional SaaS model where you're charging based off seats, or in the context of HubSpot or Salesforce, you actually have 10 different pricing levers at which you're charging for, not just seats. And I think that's great. They built durable businesses doing that. And honestly, I respect the hell out of them for that as well. But if we put that aside, we don't want to charge for those things. We want to basically provide the software for free and charge for the labor. So when we charge based off credit consumption, right? So we're a lot more akin to a tool like Claude, right? Or where you're using an API, especially on the API side, where the more work you do in Clarify, the more we charge you. And there's effectively a profit margin that we built into the cost per credit that is a multiple of inference costs for us. So, I think that is honestly the way that most software is going to be headed, where you basically have a margin on top of inference, and the lower we can get the inference cost or maintain that, the more pricing power and leverage that we have in market. But the fact of charging for seats, I think that is, again, when you talk about vibe coding software, I'm we don't charge based off seats. We're giving you the software away for free. We're only charging for the work that you do. The more work you do, the more costs that we have, and we're offsetting that with how much we charge for our customers. So
it's a usage-based model.
Correct.
Yeah. That's where software is headed for the last couple of years anyway. So I think it makes a lot of sense.
I think it's hard because it's not predictable, but either Salesforce pricing, and either HubSpot pricing, and either any of our competitors pricing. So most competitors now, including HubSpot, and let's look at the legacy vendors, right? HubSpot and Salesforce here, they also charge you based off usage. This is what people don't understand. Is they're charging you for seats plus usage. They have to. Every software, honestly, every software that's providing AI has to charge you based off usage. There are hard cogs associated with this. And we're also, and again, 2015 Uber. So these costs are going to go up. So they have to build this into their business model, or they're going to not be in business.
Right. Yeah, I think seat-based pricing. I think a lot of what legacy companies did, to Patrick's point, is they tacked on the credit-based, usage-based model on top of their existing seat-based model. For example, we never had seat-based pricing in Syft from the very beginning, and I think that's one of the things that we got right when a lot of people in our category were seat-based actually. And I feel like, I think one of the things is just like, even in the credit-based world where you're pure credit-based, I think the issue is that, like, and I would like to hear your opinion, like when people are comparing you against, let's say, HubSpot or AdHero or like any of these CRMs, right, in your segment, like it becomes harder for them to figure out, like, do an apples to apples comparison when they're like, shopping based on, let's say, when they're doing price comparison. How do you handle that? Yeah, I mean, we have one way of doing it, but I want to hear, like, how do you do it?
Yeah, I mean, half of our customers love our pricing because it's super transparent and they think of it as fair. Half of our customers hate it because there's no way for the CFO to predict costs, right? Because but to be clear, there's no way for you to predict costs on Claude, right? And there's plenty of analogies now where people are like, oh, I don't want the all-you-can-eat Claude. Like these are big enterprises, Fortune 1000 companies who, go to Anthropic and are like, oh, we'll charge you $30 million. And they're like, no, I don't like this. It's all you can eat. No, I don't like this. I want, it needs to be usage based. And they end up paying $60-90 million in usage, right? And this is like a thing that's happening quite a bit now. And so like people do want predictability, but like even when forced at larger organizations to get predictable all you can eat costs, they end up trying to go the variable route because they feel like they're overpaying. And then they realize that people just eat a ton. So like, this is good for us. It's also bad for us, right? In the sense that when customers that want predictability, is how do we provide that for them? And so we've done a lot of things on like usage forecasting. We typically work with people to understand like what work are they going to automate, how many people are going to be using the system. This is the same work we had to do at Amplitude, because Amplitude is a usage-based pricing model as well. So we built a lot of internal tooling to get us confidence on what it's going to cost them, what our margins look like, and also for the customer to get confidence for them on what usage is going to look like as well. But to be clear, every single competitor charges for usage. There's only one right now that doesn't. And again, it's I'm like, this is not a sustainable business model. You're funding this through venture capital, because if they're, and the other thing is like, if that worked for them, it means their AI is not good because people aren't going to use their AI. So if you're not going to be able to make money from it, like you're not going to invest in it to be good.
Yeah, I think I think that's like the part where you predict how much usage is going to be, and then like be proactive communicating to the customers. I think is like it's pretty I think underexplored right now.
We built this into our settings page. So if you go to a billing page and clarify, like we literally show you like a burn up chart of like how you're trending on usage. We show you every single feature that's consuming credits, and we're trying to get better at like the value analysis. So if you have a bunch of agents running, we show you the number of times it's run, the number of credits consumed per run, and we extrapolate that out and say like, hey, like this thing is costing you a ton of money. Are you getting value from this? Like if you're not, turn it off. Because we don't want customers being like, oh, this thing's too expensive. Because honestly, like we're cheaper, like at scale, we're still cheaper than a lot of the legacy companies, right? Like,
right.
Like HubSpot, you might get on the startup plan, but like once you get off the startup plan, like you're spending tens of thousands of dollars even at a seed Series A company. So like we're cheaper than that for the vast majority of our customers. We're still better, faster, and cheaper than the alternative incumbent that they'd be using.
Yeah, and I think what I have personally learned is not that it's people don't like surprises. They don't. It's not the cost aspect of it that bothers them. It's like that, like like you could be charging them like 1/10 of what a competitor charges them.
Yeah.
But then like if for whatever reason their usage goes up by 50% and they didn't know about it, it still rankles them quite a bit, and understandably slow. And so like it's. I think when we show up the breakdowns, we call them like motions in our product, like agents that are like doing work, and we show breakdown per motion, like how many credits are going and so on, or like how many signals, because we have a data component. But I think that your this idea of like showing a forecast, I think is pretty novel. I'll steal it from you actually.
Yeah, go look at our billing page, you'll see it. And it's like, yeah, it's good because like we show you the individual agent that's consuming it, right? So if you have 30 agents running, we show you like what percentage of credits consumed by agent, by workflow, by campaign that's running.
Yeah, I want to kind of go back to a point that we briefly touched upon, which is that we are in this token maximization era, and also the cost of building software has sort of gone to zero. We have joked like a couple of weeks ago when we were at an event, like I was like, oh, like I think Patrick was presenting Clarify to a group of people, and I'm like, Patrick, this is like a shit ton of product that you've built in a short amount of time. And then you joked back saying like you have to build a shit ton of product because like a CRM is just a big surface area in general to get to parity with existing competitors. Did AI make it cheaper for you to build? Like, would you have taken on something like Clarify in a pre-AI era? Like, did it give you a leg up in terms of how you build the software and how you got to your current stage? What does it mean for startups in general?
I think the hardest part is architecture. So honestly, like I don't think, if we're to build Clarify today, right? If you look at the total amount of capital we raised, the amount of capital that's got poured into R&D, we can probably build Clarify much cheaper than what we could have done even when we started in January 24, right? So like, and the cost of building software is going down, right? So that means the cost of the new entrant into the market is also lower, right? So that's something I'm like hyper aware of. But now the cost of getting I think, we have competitors, and like I go look at their APIs. I go look at an API is the best way to. Are they building this in the right way? And I go look at their APIs. I'm like, you're not. Okay, great, perfect. I'm not worried. Because the decisions that you make around architecture and the primitives that you have in your product influence everything else about your software, right? And so for me, it's like even if you can vibe code things, like I think if I was to build the company, like I think the architecture we built was freaking solid. And that there's a lot of kudos to our team, architect, my co-founder. Now, the fractional cost of building new features on top of the platform and the architecture that we built is super fast now. Like, I built a feature last night, and like I think of this as three things, right? Like, and I'll come back on this, but there's three jobs now in this kind of future AI world. And I think so. It is easier to build features. I think there's still a lot of gaps that we have in our product. I would argue that we're not trying to get to feature parity. We're trying to get to use case parity. So I think a lot of the jobs that people had in sales, like we should figure out how to automate. Right, a lot of the things that they had to do, they shouldn't have to do anymore. Right, and so like I think we have to rethink how work was done in this post AI world. So it's not automate the existing thing that people were doing, as well as like how does it change? How does it fundamentally change? And that's more first principles thinking that we're trying to apply to a lot of what we're doing. But let me go back to, I will say that the three jobs in my mind for an engineer or an R&D team is you're either building the factory, you're maintaining the infrastructure, aka the reliability of the software and the quality of the software that you're shipping, or you're the product builder, right? And so like product builder, if you're, and again, like this is one where people who have really good taste, understand software, are freaking close to the customer and understand the pain points that they have. This is the best time in the world to, honestly, the best time that I've had career-wise to be a product builder. I put myself in the product builder category. We have engineers who are really good at building the factory, aka like how software ships. We have engineers that are really good at maintaining the software, right? The reliability, the platform that we're building. And so when people think vibe coding, I think they think a lot about the product builder side. They don't think about the factory side or the maintainability of the system, right? And so for me as a product builder, yeah, this is a great time to build. Now, taste matters so much more as well, because I think people who don't have taste are building bad software, right? And so like knowing what to build, why to build it, that is just as valuable as it was 10, 15, 20 years ago when I started becoming a product manager, right? Now I have the tools that allow me to communicate in code instead of a PRD or a 60-page spec document when I first started my career. And so that's much easier because I can throw a prototype together in a matter of hours that would have taken me weeks to figure out previously.
So you mentioned that like the architectural decisions like matter, and that
sure.
That's a reflection of this. What would be like a good example of a decision that you made on that has turned out to be kind of really great? And how did you even arrive at that decision? What in your previous experience allowed you to kind of zoom in on that?
We built Clarify to look a lot more like a CDP, right? So they're talking about CDPs, warehouse native, things like that.
Well, Greg used to work at a CDP company.
Yeah, exactly.
He was at Alembic, so like which built a CDP. So
yeah, so we think about things like entity resolution. We think about things like event streams, like everything, like, in the context of a CRM, right? Like you typically have relational data and you have an activity log, right? If you're familiar with Salesforce, not all fields have activity tracking,
Right.
right? There's like everything in Clarify, every action is logged as an activity, right? And that's a queryable activity table that like you can feed into AI so it can understand history and do things like forecasting. There's businesses like Clary that have been built on this generalized concept on top of Salesforce to make better forecasting possible. And so like we built our system in a way to not only do we track all the activity of the record updates and we track every activity of an agent that's updating records, we can ingest large volumes of third-party event data, right? We can ingest your product usage data. We can ingest signals from tools like Syft as well, right? And all that feeds our AI. Provides better context for our agents. So like, I think that was an architectural decision that we made. I think the other architectural decision that we made was to, and we talk a lot about coming from the data space. We talk a lot about this whole notion of like a semantic layer, right? We built kind of this generalized semantic layer inside of Clarify so we understand the ontology, the data model better for our AI, right? So it's highly hyper flexible. Like you can create whatever custom objects you want. You can create custom activities. You can create custom relationships across these things, but like the semantic layer that we provide to our agent kind of understands the meaning behind these things. I think that was a good decision. Additionally, like every view, everything inside of our product, like our application basically operates over SQL, right? So like we're not making API calls to, like these hyper-defined endpoints, right? We're generating SQL queries on top of this warehouse that we manage for the customer. And so that means that like you can do cross-database joins, you can do computed fields, you can do calculated fields, like all these things are possible. And then that what we're querying is hyper-performant for being able to show the data in an easy way. And so like it means that like you don't have this issue of data drifts over time, like the data that's actually being written, you can actually see, you can actually fact check it. So if somebody, in the context of us being a warehouse native system, if somebody wants to connect Clarify to Looker or Hex or some other third-party tool, they can do it and they can see the exact query that we're generating and they can reproduce it. And so this whole notion of data drift has kind of been solved from us because it's like, there is just one system. We're not mutating the data as well. I think that was a good decision. There was a lot of work that we had to do there as well. But yeah,
I got a question regarding this. Like, and what I've heard from some other people, some VCs I was speaking to recently, they felt that like it's too easy to roll out new features now with AI. So I'm curious, like, how do you? Yeah, did you agree? And then like, if you do agree, like, how do you maintain cohesion and keep the product going in the direction that you think makes sense, since it's so easy to roll out new features? And that's what their perspective was on a lot of new startups, that it's so easy to do stuff. Everyone's just kind of like throwing everything in there, and they've kind of it's removed the friction of like introducing a feature used to be a high effort kind of thing to do. Yeah.
And it also like, I think it also creates noise in the market, right? Like in the sense that like you could say like something like data drift, right? Like Clarify solves it overnight, like 5 other competitors could make the same claim and ship some version of it, you did.
Right.
And so like, so I think that kind of cues up like the next question that I have as well. But like, I think that's the other factor.
One real quick. And, so I think there's, when you think about building software and distribution, I think distribution is harder right now for startups than it is building software, right? Because there's so much noise in the market. We change our product positioning, competitors copy it within a couple of weeks. Like this has happened multiple times, and it's frustrating because it's like what would be like the category leader in the new entrant space, like the one that's like I'm like, guys, like come up with your own positioning, and you just see it happen. You're like, okay, cool. There's not a ton, and I'd say this has been the case in time. It's like positioning is really hard because like we come up with something, we like it, we test it with customers, it works, it resonates. And then, within 2 weeks of us shipping it or changing our positioning, competitors copy it. So like, I will say that's happened more often than I would have thought. Now, on the product side, it's competitors can copy something on the product, but it's the taste that goes into it. Like, are they able to execute it as well? Right? There was a ton of companies that tried to copy Jira and Atlassian when I was there, right? Like they just didn't execute as well. There's one that did. There's one that did in market, which is Linear. I think they executed well. But they were way more opinionated about the software that they built. So go back to your first question, Greg. Like, having opinions matter. Having strong opinions matter, right? And so for me, like I unshipped 3 features this week, right? I was like, these don't fucking make sense. Like honestly, these features don't make sense anymore. They didn't hit the quality bar or the release, the release success criteria to actually deserve to live in product. And so this is like, I joked with the team this week, I like Marie Kondoed our product. I was like, does this thing need to exist? If not, I'm fucking killing it. And I think that's the way that most founders need to think about it. And like, I think, Imran, you're also a Reforge alum, if I remember. But like in Reforge, the one thing that I really like that I take a ton of value from now is like my earliest stage career, especially as a PM, I was like more. I was trying to add more features into the products I was building, and the older I get, I'm like less. And I still think of being able to like solve jobs. So like, a great example is just like, customers want to do outbound dialing. Okay, cool. Like we need to be able to solve for that job. We don't have to be as feature rich as all the tools out there today in market. And so I do think of like being just enough or good just enough to be able to solve that problem for our ICP and do it in a way that just makes sense as a cohesion of the overall product experience. Definitely agree with. Now, I will say that most companies, again, this goes back into taste, don't get it right? Because features are so easy to build, their product doesn't look polished, right? It's not easy to use. So every feature that you add into your product actually hurts you on growth most of the time. So like every feature you add slows growth down because it makes your product more complex. It's harder to communicate the value to customers. So like you have to think about it as a portfolio, and you're constantly grooming the capabilities that you have in your product. Some of them are going to survive, some of them aren't. Some you're going to reinvest in, some of them you're going to kill. And so, yeah, like I cleaned up 3 of the features that we had today, and I killed 3 other features, right? And that was over the course of this week. And that was something that I was like, hey, this doesn't match our quality bar. Our quality bar has gone up. This thing doesn't match our quality bar, so I either need to make this better or I need to kill it. That's it.
And what was when do you decide to kill things? Is it usage? Is it that it doesn't meet quality? Like what was the?
We have thousands of customers using us now, right? So like there was a feature that was, I'll use an example here. There's a feature called a allow list. So we have a block list and an allow list feature, right? We had 19 companies using our allow list feature. I hate that feature, right? Why? Because it's like, if you have to define a allow list of what data is flowing into Clarify, you don't trust. Like it's a trust issue, right? So like, how do we communicate better trust? And the issue is like, when you do that, if you decide to operate Clarify in that modality, it means that we're not ingesting the data that our AI actually can take advantage of to actually provide you strategic recommendations, right? Like we don't have the context of your calendar. We don't have the context of all your emails, right? Because we're only ingesting the stuff that was in the allow list. So I was like, this doesn't make sense in our portfolio now in the future vision of the company that we have, if we want to own the agent layer for organizations to support this feature. So I killed it. And like those,
and I'm assuming that feature was built because a few of those 19 had asked for it, I'm assuming. So what do you go and tell those people? You just say like, and I guess that goes into your calculus that it's okay if we churn those 19.
So those 19 are easy because what I was able to do is I'm able, and this is, there's feature tech debt here that needs to be cleaned up. So in the example here, I basically killed it in the sense of like no new customers can adopt it. So for those 19, like I can solve the change management problem over the course of the next, 3 to 6 months. I don't have to solve it today. But what I was very clear on is like, hey, basically Monday, by Tuesday, this feature change happened. That I do not want to increase the surface area of customers adopting this thing. And so like we removed it from documentation, we removed it from the product. Like this feature no longer exists. And but in the example of those 19, yeah, there's like the technical debt of like eventually migrating those people, but like that's not a price that I think we want to pay as a company right now to go solve that. What I want to solve is making sure that like for the next 1,000 companies that are using this, they don't have to ever think about what an allow list is or have to make that decision.
I want to go back to that earlier point of like when we were talking about distribution and product. So you said like, product features, like Greg was saying, like, just like people kind of ship much faster. Positioning, you said, is also sort of, temporal. You have to change the positioning like a more quicker. So what is really durable? Like, like in this business?
Yeah, honestly, taste. Yeah.
Okay.
Like,
and how do you sort of communicate it to how as a customer in the CRM space, how do I know that Patrick has better taste than like you see what I mean?
Honestly,
I know you have excellent taste, by the way, but I'm just saying like a customer is trying to kind of choose between HubSpot, Atio, and a bazillion of different AI native CRMs.
Yeah.
Like like how do you how do you get that across as a founder and a product leader?
And it's a great question. I think this is a question. So like the two rules of thumb over the last like decade, you either build a PLG company or build a sales-led company, right? There's not much in between. Sales-led companies, like you jump on a call, you qualify, you figure out what pain points they have, and then you try to position your product in the best way, best light, so that like, hey, my solution is better than the company, especially if it's a competitive deal. But the customer never actually experiences the value. Like typically they're gated, like you don't have a solution for them. Now, PLG company, like we're a PLG company, like we want to make our product so damn easy to use and get started that like somebody can experience an aha moment within the first 30 seconds of trialing our solution. And so for us, that's our advantage. We're better. We believe that we're better product builders than our competitors. And so it's our job to go prove it. And the way that we prove it is we put 80% of our resources into building a better product. We have a lot of competitors right now that are, flying billboards over SF. We're doing out-of-home takeovers, and we're not buying ads. We're not doing that shit. We're spending all of our time and energy building a better product. And I do think distribution matters, and we probably spend some time talking about that. But like for us, like our advantage is that we can build great products. So like let's go do that. And so the way that I think about this is like I push our, if I have a customer call, or if I have somebody come in like, hey, how are you different than Adio? I'm like, this is how we're different. But I encourage you, go play with the product, go use theirs, go use ours. Same thing with any of our other competitors, like use it. Oh, you can't sign up for those companies? I wonder why. They don't give you access, or you have to sign a 25K pilot to actually get access to the product. I wonder why, right? Like I just plant the seed with them. I'm like, why would they gate the product? If they thought the product worked, why would they gate it? And so for us, I'm like, you can play with anything. Like honestly, we offer a 14-day reverse trial. You have access to all of our features for the first 14 days. If the product doesn't work, it's on us. We did a shitty job. But like I can tell you that I think we did a better job than our competitors. Go play with it. So yeah, that's my chip on my shoulder as somebody who spent the last 15 plus years building products. So like you'll obviously see like that comes through in like how we think about pricing and even our go-to-market motion. But yeah, like I stand behind our product more so than anything else in market.
So you're all in on PLG.
I'm all in on PLG.
Yeah. Since you brought it up, like I would love to hear how you do think about distribution, what you're doing, and what's working, and what you think's changed, because I do think it's changed pretty significantly in the last couple of years.
And so this goes back into product, right? Like so at Atlassian, like we had a flywheel. So like the nice thing about Atlassian, and like we did have Atlassian today has a go-to-market team. They have a sales team now. Like when I was there, that was not necessarily the case. We had people that kind of operated there as like product specialists who effectively were salespeople, but it was not like there was a lot less of them than there are now. So when I was there, the way that the flywheel worked at Atlassian is we invested, if you think about, I'll use this comparable. So like 50 cents on a dollar of revenue for Atlassian goes back into product, right? 19 cents goes into sales and marketing. So it means like every dollar earned, 50% of that's going back into making the product better. And 20% is going on increasing distribution. I think of the same budget or portfolio breakdown for us as from a capital perspective. How do we invest our capital? Now, if I think about a company like when I was at Amplitude, it was basically the opposite. About 20 cents on the dollar went into R&D, and the rest went into sales and marketing. And so this is my litmus test when I think about construction of a company is like, hey, are they a product company or are they a sales and marketing company? And if they're spending more time and money on sales and marketing, I'm like, oh, they're a sales and marketing company. They're not a product company. Now, for us, like going back into how I think about it, Atlassian, they spent all their time building a great product that customers would remark upon. So Jay Simons would say, hey, we want to build a remarkable company where customers are remarking upon it, and they're remarking upon the product. So like that built a natural flywheel. When people use the tool, they talk about the tool to their friends, and that drove more people in. All right, so that's the same way for us. Like our number one distribution right now is customers talking about how much they love our product. And again, it shows. Like if you use our product, like I hope you have a great experience. I hope you tell your friends about it, because like I'd rather do that than spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on advertising today. I'd rather put that money into building a better product.
Really good. Really good. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm glad that you brought up the percentages. Imran, I don't know if you were paying attention, but OpenAI's like data was leaked, and they show that they're spending 47% of revenue on go-to-market, which I was surprised by. Like, I think they have so much market pull. They have so much publicity. I've been sharing that with all my customers. Like, hey, do you know they spend half of all their money on GTM?
And
You go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to know what that 47%. I haven't seen that stat. I'll look it up. I want to see like what that 47% entails, because I think it's like to Patrick's point. I think, and some people have made this thing, which is now a lot of these companies are doing PLG in a way, right? Because you go and like, you can use ChatGPT or whatever. Like a lot of these AI products have come with sort of free usage, and I think that has to go under growth and marketing as well. Like, like it's like, to me that like, and I suspect a lot of these companies will have to start bucketing that in GTM costs going forward, because the COGS are what they are. Right? So there is no sort of, it's expensive to give freemium to people now. I think we've talked about it before, Greg.
Yeah, I mean, if I was to be more introspective about Anthropic, I think a lot of it, especially the bigger companies they're working with, is like people just don't know how to use AI, right? So like a lot of
it's true. It's new, right? How no one knows.
Yeah, I think if you think about like their investments, like if you look at both OpenAI and Anthropic, right, they're both investing in moving up market, right, or like becoming more of a verticalized solutions company than just this like foundational model company, right? So like there's some like risk for every company that's building on top of them right now, right? And you can see this even in like biotech, right? Like a bunch of the biotech companies are like, no, we're not giving you our data anymore, because they just built a specific model for biotech.
Yeah,
right? It's like, I'm not getting, if I'm a biotech company, I'm not giving you my data for you to train a better model that they can get sold or remediate me from my own customer, right? So like, I think there is this natural tension that's going to happen there. But I think for a lot of these foundational model companies like Anthropic, like they're going to have to come in and provide either solutions or some sort of way of like getting more adoption within like kind of the late majority out there in order to continue to grow on at least the trajectory that they're growing on today, which is why I think they're investing a lot more in go-to-market. But it's more, I'd say, the way I'd probably describe it is it's more expanding the relationship, right? It's more like NRR and expansion than like probably net new lands, where I think a lot of where go-to-market tooling or go-to-market expense goes into from traditional SaaS companies is on the acquisition side. For Anthropic, I don't think it's the acquisition side. I think it's the expansion side.
Yeah, we are at time actually. This one kind of, this is like, it's always so engaging talking with you, Patrick, and I
went fast.
So yeah, that was fast. Patrick also speaks very fast, so it's like it's all kind of crammed. This episode is going to be loaded with stuff. But again, thanks for coming onto the show, and for people who want to try clarify, like 30-second pitch, and maybe they're saddled with their existing CRM. Like, how would you encourage them to kind of try out Clarify?
I mean, you can get started in less than 30 seconds. Just go to clarify.ai, click get started, and you'll be up and running. Like, our goal is to build a CRM that customers love. If you have any issues, ping me at patrick@clarify.ai. Would love any feedback that folks have. And yeah, excited to work with early stage startups. So Imran, Greg, pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Cool. We're at.
I'm gonna stop this.
Yeah, I do speak super fast, which I always forget about.
No, yeah, I was gonna tell. I was like, Patrick, just slow down.